Now there are times if you've made a particularly long or particularly wide leaf or petal where you will find that the structure is just a bit loose. It's quite hard to shape and it's going to come out of shape very easily. So in order to combat that problem, there's a technique called lacing that I'm going to show you now. You want to start using 28 gauge or 0.315mm wire, and you want to choose a wire that is as close a match to your beads as possible. So in this case I've got my green beads on the leaf and the green wire. What you're going to do is measure out a length that's about 2 to 3 times the width that you're wanting to lace. If you're just starting out and you're a bit skeptical about this, then cut it longer rather than shorter. Just put that wire out the way. Now for the lacing, we want to work on the wrong side of the petal or leaf. So you can see this is the side that's got the wire showing at the bottom and again at the top. Now depending on the shape that you're lacing, you might get away with just one line of lacing across the centre, or you might want to do one about 1/3 of the way up and another one about 2/3 of the way up. So just use your discretion. It'll be something you get comfortable with as you get more experienced. For this one, I think I will get away with doing it about 1/3 of the way up and then 2/3 again. So I'm going to start with my first row on the bottom here. Now I've just threaded the wire across that central row, so looking at it from the back, the wire's gone over the front, and we're going to cross those two ends of wire over and pull them tight so they should snap in place between a pair of beads, just as you can see there. Now you're going to take one end of wire. It's easiest if you separate out the rows just a little bit, and that will allow you to feed that end of wire around the front of your next row. You want to hold that row in place tightly against the centre row and pull that wire tight, so again it's snapping in between two beads. We move on and do the next row. Try and keep the wire going in as straight a line as you can. It's a bit tricky because sometimes the beads have a mind of their own and they will force the wire to go out of alignment, but do the best you can. That's snapped in place again between the beads. Let's take on the next row. So each time I'm just separating out the rows that I'm not using, just wrapping across around the front and then across the back to snap the wire into place. Now you might have noticed I haven't folded over my top wire. I tend to do this deliberately because you can find that as you're doing the lacing it causes the rows to sort of realign themselves at the top. So if you haven't cut off that top wire, they've got room to expand upwards if they need to. As I'm positioning it, I'm just making sure I'm getting a good alignment down at the bottom here. So if we get to this final row on the outside, just wrap that wire and snap it into place. If I turn the leaf over, you can see where I've laced, the line of lacing is really barely visible at all. On the back you can see much more clearly. So you would go on and do exactly the same thing across the other side. I'm just going to show you how to finish off the wire. It's very simple. You just want to take your pliers, make sure you've got the flat edge against the leaf and just trim in as close as possible. Now that wire's so tightly held it's not going to come undone. And as I say, I would now go back and just lace across the other side, and that will give your leaf a much firmer structure.